Jagannatho Madguru Shri Jagadguru Madatma Sarvabhutatma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Asmakam Yadunandanam Ghriyugaladhyana Vadhanarthinam Kim lokena damena kim Nripatina Swargapavargaishcha kim Aho chitram Vande tat prema bandhanam Yad baddham muktidam muktam Brahma krida kritam Yo brahmanam vidadhati purvam Yo vai vedanscha prahinoti tasmai Tagmangha devamatma buddhi prakasham Mumukchurvai sharanamaham prapadye. Dear devotees, today I'm going to talk to you about 3 graces of God, 3 types of God's grace, without which it would be impossible for anybody to attain God. We could say instead of grace, we could even say riayat. Riayat means a concession or a freedom that God has given us, without which no one could have ever attained God. So I'm going to cover each one of these 3 points, and after one point I'll stop and see if anybody has any questions. Same thing after the second, same thing after the third. So the first grace of God, or riayat, that God has given us that is so important for a devotee has to do with Rup Dhyan. You all know, you've heard it explained, that it's important to attach our mind to God. In Vedas, it is said, Tasya bhidhyanat yojanat tattvabhavat bhuyaschante vishwamaya nivrittihi. You have to completely join your mind with God. In Gita, Shri Krishna says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mayyarpita mano buddhi. He says again and again in the Gita to give our mind to Him. So this mind has to be attached to Shri Krishna. Only then we will get His grace. Only then our mind will be purified. And only then we can know Him and attain Him. So how do we attach our mind to someone who's beyond everything? Yato vacho nivartante prapya manasa saha. Taittiriya Upanishad says, however far your mind can go, God is beyond that. However far words can go, God is beyond that. Go go char jaha lagi man jai, so sab maya jane hu bhai. Bhagwan Ram is telling his brother Lakshman that no matter how far the human mind can reach up to, God is beyond that. Because our mind is made of Maya, and the whole world is made of Maya, so our mind can roam around this world, but God is beyond Maya. So how can a Mayic mind reach to divine God? Seems like it should be completely impossible to even think of God. Ved is saying, join your mind with God. How will you join a material thing with a divine thing? Your material mind can't get anywhere near God's divine form. And here we are in Rup Dhyan saying, okay, so I have to attach my mind to Krishna, then I'll remember his form. That's the method, right? That's the method we're taught. Whoever's form we think of in the world, we get attached to that person. So let's think of Krishna's form and we'll get attached to him. That's Rup Dhyan. But why does it work? It shouldn't work. Krishna is divine. Whatever form you're thinking of is not Krishna, right? That's what someone could argue. Krishna's divine form. What if he was really strict and he said, okay, I know what I look like. And if you don't imagine me exactly correctly the way I am, I'm not counting your Rup Dhyan for anything. My nose better be exactly right. My ears better be precisely how they are. My eyelashes better be exactly how my eyelashes look like. Otherwise, I'm not giving you any points for your Rup Dhyan. No grace, unless you get it right. If he made such a rule, who could have ever thought of him, let alone attained him? No one could have ever meditated on him. In fact, even in this world, if I tell you to think of your father's face or your mother's face that you've looked at millions of times, can you get their nose exactly right? Their ears exactly right? No. So even a material thing we can't get it right, and then Krishna happens to be divine, so that's a whole other area. Our mind can never correctly imagine what Krishna looks like. To do that, you need a divine mind. When you get divine eyes, you'll see what Krishna looks like. In your divine mind, you can imagine him anytime you want after that. But with a material mind, forget it. So when we have a material mind, it's impossible to think of Krishna, but we have to think of Krishna to get a divine mind. It's a catch-22. Seems like there's no way to get where we have to go. Should be impossible, right? So this is where Shri Krishna's first riayat comes into play. His big grace on us. He says, you know what? I'm here with you. I'm inside your mind. And I'm even inside that not quite correct form that you're imagining. Krishna is in everything, right? So he's even in that. We're trying to think of some form of Krishna and it's not coming out exactly right. He says, don't worry, I'm in that form that you made. And I know that you're making the effort to think of me, so I'm gracing you for your effort, not for the correctness of your imagination. This is the first big grace. This is why Rup Dhyan works. Because Shri Krishna says, मैं मान लेता हूँ, तुम जो भी रूप बनाओगे, मैं मान लेता हूँ कि वही मैं हूँ. So he knows our inner thoughts and he graces us for our effort. We don't have to be right in our imagination. We just have to try to think of him. And we can even imbue our Rup Dhyan with that feeling that, hey, this form of Krishna I'm seeing in my mind, he is in that form. So actually this is real Krishna, even though I shouldn't be able to think of Krishna's actual form, but this is real Krishna because he's come into my meditation. He's here. This is the first big riayat. Without that, who could have ever meditated on Krishna? And if nobody could meditate on him, nobody could ever make even one step of progress on the path of bhakti. So this is point number 1. Anybody have any questions about Roop Dhyan? Yes?
So, like, how do they, like, make the murtis? Like, how do they make them? How do they know what they look like?
I'm glad you asked that question. So there's 2 points I want to make about that. First, about how do they know what the murtis, how to make them look like, to make it look like Krishna. Those who got a divine mind, they told us what Krishna looks like. Now, even though we have their description, we still can't imagine him perfectly well, right? But it's okay. It's enough for us to get started, and he just graces us with the rest. So they also make murtis according to those descriptions, just like we can make a form of Krishna in our mind. So the carver or the sculptor can make the murti of Krishna out of a piece of stone or a piece of metal or even a piece of wood. And when we worship the murti, it should be the same as when we worship the form of Krishna in our mind. Just like in our mind, we think, okay, I know that my imagination isn't perfect, but Krishna's here anyway. This really is Krishna. You have to think the same thing when you're doing arti of a murti. You shouldn't think I'm doing this of a piece of stone, which some carver made to look like Radha Krishna. No, you think Radha Krishna are in this murti. Whether the murti is carved perfectly to look like them or not doesn't matter. They're here. And I'm doing their arti. Then you get the benefit of worshipping Radha Krishna. So that's also their riayat. They're here. All we have to do is try to join our mind with them and we get the connection. It's like we open ourselves up and Krishna comes and makes the connection. Any other questions about Roop Dhyan? Yes.
You mentioned about the root dhyan and concentration, but do you think in real life, when the person is not completely in yoga and is in karma yoga or is still in the family life and all, do you think they can concentrate completely on God? Because there's so many distractions, so many other commitments, so many other events going on, and you have many times we don't want to avoid, but those things are not, we want to avoid those things, but we cannot, and we have to focus on them also, but then there's a lot of distractions.
So that's why you have to dedicate some time to practice Roop Dhyan every day. Just like no matter how busy you are, you dedicate some time to feed your body. You dedicate some time to rest your body. So you have to dedicate some time for Roop Dhyan every day, no matter how busy life is.
So do you think if we do that, at least that is enough?
Yes, that's enough.
How much is enough?
That's enough to make some progress. And all that matters is you're making progress. How fast you're going, don't worry about that. Just start doing something so you're moving. Any other questions on Roop Dhyan? Okay, now Riayat number 2. God gives us another big break when He says we can love Him any way we want. We don't get such breaks in the world. In the world, there are really strict restrictions. And what I mean by that is, if somebody is your son, do you also have the freedom to treat them like your father if you feel like it? No, you don't have that freedom, right? If someone is your son, there's a certain set of behaviors that's acceptable. And the other set of behaviors that's acceptable with your father only applies to him, not to your son. And the two are not interchangeable. You wouldn't say to your father, "Oh, Dad, bring me a glass of water." Right? You'd say that to your son or your daughter. You wouldn't say it to your mother or your father. You would get them a glass of water. So these restrictions, they're everywhere in the world. You love your friends in one way. You love your husband in another way. You love your children in a different way. You even have a formal love, even though very distant, for some acquaintances, maybe neighbors, colleagues. So all different kinds of love, all different kinds of relationships you have in the world, and you stick to the rules in the world. You know you treat one person one way and you treat another person another way. Shri Krishna says, well, I'm only one for you. So if I make those kinds of rules, you might get bored. In the world, you have millions of people, right? So you have this relationship with that person, that relationship with another person. So you actually desire to have all those relationships. You want to have a mother, a father, a friend, a husband, a wife. You want to have all these relationships. And if you don't have one, you feel like something's missing. Like on Rakhi Day, if you don't have a brother, then you go and make a brother. You call it Mera Dharam Ka Bhai. You make a Nakli Bhai just for Rakhi. So we want to have all those relationships. So Shri Krishna says, if I make rules like, okay, you can only love me this way, then you're going to get bored with me. And you'll have to find another place to attach your mind. But he said, no, I want your mind attached to me. So I'm giving you all the freedom. Divyo Deva Eko Narayano Mata Pita Bhrata Nivasa Sharanam Suhrid Gati. Subala Upanishad says, one Shri Krishna is your father and your mother and your brother and your friend and your protector and your well-wisher and your beloved, all in one. Can you imagine so much freedom? He says, you're not restricted with me. You want to love me as your best friend 1 minute, and the next minute you decide that, no, now I want Krishna to be my father. Okay, total freedom. Then you get bored with thinking of Krishna as your father. You decide, I want Krishna as my husband. Okay, go ahead. No restriction whatsoever. He says, you love me any way you want. So in that way, this loving heart that we have, that's always looking for love here and there, we can focus all of that emotion and affection on Shri Krishna. So without that, it would be very hard to attach our mind to him. We'd get bored of thinking of Krishna. But we have actually 5 ways we can think of him. Shant Bhav, Dasya Bhav, Sakhya Bhav, Vatsalya Bhav, Madhurya Bhav. These are the 5 ways of loving Shri Krishna. You know what Shant Bhav is? Who knows? You know?
Shant is peace, I think.
Yes, but it's not what it means here. What is Shant Bhav? You're right, that's what the word means. What is the relationship of Shant Bhav? If you love Krishna with Shant Bhav, it means he's the king and you're a subject in his kingdom. It's also love, but more distant, formal love. Or you can love him with Dasya Bhav. What's that? You know?
Servant.
Yeah, you're the servant and he's your master. Included in Dasya